You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
Boom! This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
You're listening to Making Tracks. This is episode 251. I'm your co-host, Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who is almost as rocky as Geode. It's Mark Mulcaster. Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. Thought you were going to say I had as much personality as Geode.
Well, that's next episode. Come on, we haven't got through this one yet. Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, bud. I was on the Rule the Galaxy podcast with our good friend Joe the other day. We're doing a new kind of branch of Rule Galaxy podcast where me and you are going to hop on periodically, either one of us or both of us, or if Joe's really lucky, none of us. So,
yeah, if he's lucky, he'll just sit there and talk to himself.
How about you? What have you been up to? Because you didn't make it, could you?
I couldn't make it, no. I hit a deadline. I'm usually better at organising my time than this sort of collision of things that meant that with finishing an article for ILM and New York Toy Fair, which we'll talk about in a minute, and life, you know, that other thing that we have to deal with, all came together, which meant I didn't quite have the time, sadly, to join you on this first episode, but I will. I did, though, have time the next day to speak to Greg McLaughlin from Rebel Base Guards. So it's me and Greg chatting about Insider and all the other latest news on episode 204 of Rebel Base Guard, which is out now. But other than that, yeah, just the usual, just piling through galleries of stuff from Toy Fair and posting stuff to the site and planning for this episode with yourself, Mark. What do you want to start on?
Let's start on the one thing that I think kind of confused me a little bit when I saw the article. Doctor Doom versus Darth Vader. Could it be a Star Wars versus Avengers Marvel comic crossover?
It blew my mind when I got sent the link for this. It sent a bit of a chill down my spine. Ever since Samuel L. Jackson first joined Star Wars and then ended up playing Nick Fury in the Avengers, and people said when Disney bought Lucasfilm and already owned Marvel, there's your chance for a crossover. Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury, who meets Mace Windu, and it seemed like a kind of cool, geeky little joke until the rumours landed over at Bleeding Cool. Rich Johnson, who's the head Supremo over there, has written a piece where he seems fairly convinced that Mark Millar is going to get involved and write a storyline where Marvel characters, specifically the Avengers, will meet the characters from Star Wars. We don't know what era. All the images in the article are taken from previous stuff. There was a proposed DC crossover that Alex Ross was involved with. That's some images on there, and there's just some fan art basically for the main cover because there's nothing official. Nothing's been announced. What are your thoughts on this?
It's a thing that I think we've all kind of been maybe thinking would never happen or would hope would probably never happen, and maybe it still may not happen. But you know, can it be like a what if one shot pre-comic book day or something that's is so clearly not in anybody's canon that everybody can just kind of go, okay, that was a fun read. Now can we get on with our serious stuff and back to galactic problems, rather than it kind of maybe being so close to the line, but actually people are like, but does this now mean that Wolverine's in, you know, Star Wars and Darth Vader's now part of a multiverse? You know, at that point I'm going to close my laptop and just be done with it.
I get that. No, totally. My hope is that it is exactly what you just said. It's a free comic book day thing, or it's a one-off, a one and done, a quirky, let's put Star Wars right back at the top of the zeitgeist thing, because those two franchises can certainly give each other the rub. So there's a logic to that. But as you say, if anyone even briefly considers that because you have a Marvel multiverse, you have a Star Wars galaxies now, but you have a Marvel multiverse, if ever we get to a point where they go, oh, well, that means Darth Vader and the whole events of Star Wars are part of the multiverse, that's where I start to lose faith and start worrying about it, in the same way that if they ever use time travel, I know we have the World Between Worlds, but that's a device. That's not time travel per se. But if you start bringing time travel into Star Wars and somebody uses it in a story, once it's used once, you can retcon everything. And without a chronology, not a canon, chronology, I don't believe Star Wars works in the way that it does and it should, because you unravel one thing and it pulls that many threads, because we go granular very quickly in Star Wars, and you change one thing and it alters many things. It's not just, oh yeah, let's make that ship blue instead of pink, that doesn't affect anything. Actually, it does. There's little things like that worry me, but it's going to be Marvel doing it. If you get a top Marvel team on it, and they write something that's really fun and engaging, and as I say, it's a one-off, and they make it very clear this isn't canon for either, it's just a fun thing, then actually I think I could just relax and let it go a little bit, because being an old Marvel UK kid, I would read Star Wars and then I would read Marvel, and the two things very much sit together. And maybe that's their thinking, maybe not thinking back to old UK Marvel stuff, but to fans who've been reading for a long time, my gateway into Marvel comics was reading Star Wars comics. And I was reading Spider-Man Weekly as a little kid before I was reading Star Wars Weekly, which hadn't even come out. So there is a blend between the two. But my point is your point. If it becomes in any way canon for either, horrible. No thanks. Robot Chicken, Family Guy, all that stuff, I'm fine with that. But this could go wrong.
As you just mentioned, Robot Chicken and Family Guy is now a different era, really, of the franchise. But this would be something different. In an ideal situation, what's your story scenario? Is it Darth Vader and a load of stormtroopers try and take on the Avengers? Or is that just a little bit too obvious?
Well, I don't know what era of Star Wars they would want to throw in. If they're just doing this as shits and giggles, then you can have Disney Infinity Star Wars if you want. You could have Darth Maul and Darth Vader and Darth Plagueis and Kylo Ren all fighting the Avengers if you want. Or you pick a time period. That fan art is very much your original 70s style Star Wars heroes and villains. So maybe that would be the one that would work. It's always been said that Darth Vader was kind of based on Doctor Doom. So there's a sort of a linkage there. Storyline-wise, I mean, a Secret Wars kind of thing would make sense. When you're pitting heroes and villains, your good guys have got to team up with your Avengers good guys, and your villains team up with the Empire or the Sith, and you do something like that, which might be a little bit on the nose, because we have actually got a movie of Secret Wars coming fairly soon.
The risk is that it's never likely to be a one and done. They do it once, and let's say they get away with it and everybody takes it with in the way that it's intended. And then they do it again, and then suddenly it's like, okay, unless we're going to do something really interesting with it, it will just feel like they're just treading old ground. But I mean, it could be cool. And like you said, it might even be very fun if they did it in like the old 77 kind of Marvel UK style, the artwork. So like stylistically, it sets it apart from both the actual main comic books without treading on too many toes. But hey, guess we'll see.
We're cautious, I would say, at the moment, because we've seen nothing and it's not been confirmed. But this thing might come out and we might read it. And Making Tracks 300, and there's us going, good God, have you read this new Marvel Star Wars comic? It's amazing. It might be the best thing ever.
This could be the start of a very exciting, brave new world.
Hi, this is Guy Henry, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks. Enjoy.
So, Skywalker Ranch General Store, it is now open to the public, and our Fantha Tracks West Coast reporter, Ricky Resurrection, was there to cover it for us. He took a load of wonderful photographs. There's an article on Fantha right now, and he was there as it opened its doors over Super Bowl weekend, which was last weekend when all those very cool trailers came out. So the Skywalker Ranch General Store has opened its doors to the public inside the Letterman Digital Arts Centre at the Presidio. There's some wonderful stuff inside, stuff that you could only previously get at Skywalker Ranch. And now there is the ability to be able to pick up some things a little bit closer to home, not that far from the Yoda statue. Ricky got inside, he took some photographs. There's a wonderful gallery of images. There's all sorts of cool stuff. There's T-shirts and shirts and caps, all the things that you would like to get if you were able to go to Skywalker Ranch, which of course not everybody is. Check out the article on the site. It's wonderful. You can even get Skywalker Vineyard stuff there, which is something, again, that you can't normally get anywhere else. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for fans who are able to visit the Presidio, who might not be able to visit Skywalker Ranch, which is only a couple of miles up the road, pretty much as the crow flies, to get things from Skywalker Ranch. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think they should keep it exclusive? Do you think it makes sense to do this? What are your thoughts on that?
We probably get enough tourist traffic around that area who want to try and visit Skywalker Ranch and that. I mean, I know you have, and I think it's nice that people got the opportunity, because we've just seen the ILM 50th anniversary merch that got released last year. It's now like a brand, and it's a brand that we can wear as fans and just kind of share the love and be proud of the fact that these people are still making fantastic content. So I'm sure it's not all the stuff that the employees get access to in terms of like exclusive designs and stuff. But I bet, if you were to go there on a regular basis, I'm sure you're going to be able to pick up some nice specific items for like various different celebrations, be it Life Day 2026 or May the 4th, or there's a film coming out in less than 100 days. So I'm sure that store is going to be crammed full of Mando and Grogu merch. So it's cool.
Just looking at the pictures, there's shirts, there's hoodies, there's, as I say, beanies and cups and caps, all sorts of other cool stuff. There's a real lovely little section with some of the Skywalker fire engine. They've got their own fire engines there at the ranch. So there's stuff to do with that as well. There's beanie hats. There's Skywalker Vineyard stuff. So there's bottles of the wines available there. There's coolers. It's really wonderful, actually, what is available inside this store. Skywalker Ranch, obviously, that's still a George thing. That's nice that there's able to be this sort of connection between the two, because in the public's minds, it's all still very much of one thing. So it's nice that people can grab a little bit of memorabilia and merchandise from Skywalker Ranch, because, like you say, it's kind of the heart of all of this, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If there is a bright center of Star Wars, it's going to be Skywalker Ranch.
Hi, this is Alexander Freed, and you are listening to Fantha Tracks.
We've had another trailer for Galactic Racer. This time, though, we get the gameplay trailer. This is what the game's going to actually look like. And good grief, doesn't it look amazing? It's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS and PC later this year. I haven't got a specific date, but it's on its way. There's the Galactic League of Racers. So it's an unsanctioned race circuit where, as they say, only the bold survive. So we're going to follow some specific races. There's one called Shade, who dreams of glory and revenge. And by the looks of it, it's absolutely set up, one, for different gamers to join in and take part in these races, two, just to be something that people get really into, and three, a bit like Outlaws with Low Red Moon just coming out and other ancillary material. You can imagine that there will be novels and comics and other spin-off stuff. What do you make of this so far?
It looks fantastic, and we're getting a lot of in-engine gameplay footage in the trailer, which is awesome. So you kind of get a real good grasp of actually what you're going to see and experience when you're playing that. And what I like about this is, it's called Galactic Racer, and so we're not just limited to pod races. We're looking at, it looks like swoops and land speeders. It looks really fun, and it's going on my wish list anyway, because I'm hoping it's going to be a game that can just jump in quite easily, jump in and out, not necessarily need to spend like hours and hours. I was probably knocked up last time I checked. It was 69 hours of gameplay for Outlaws. So that's, for me anyway, quite a lot of time spent gaming. And I haven't finished a game by no stretch of imagination. In fact, I probably haven't even gone off of Canto Bight. So that shows how bad I am as a gamer. That being said, if you can just jump in for like 20 minutes, half hour or so whilst your tea's cooking, like you used to, then why not?
Squadrons was fun for me for that exact reason, that you could hop in and do a bit. I did like the training stuff. I'm lousy at gaming, but this excites me because I used to be pretty darn good at Episode 1 Racer and loved playing that game so much. So I'm hoping that Galactic Racer brings back a little bit of that vibe. And like you say, if we can build teams or we can get people together to play, get a Fantha team going, I don't know. It could be fun. It could be a lot of fun. And also, we don't quite know what we're getting from Starfighter. This, to me, feels like a bit of a tonal connection with that. We're bringing pod racing back, so Bulba's in it. We've seen Ben Quadraneros in the trailer. So we've seen some of the older guys coming back into this. Yeah, I think this could be really exciting.
Hi, this is David W. Collins, voice actor for Star Wars and sound designer at Skywalker Sound. You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
So we have two interviews in this episode of Making Tracks, and the first one is between Paul Naylor and Hugh Spight. Hugh, you all know, is playing one of the prune faces in Return of the Jedi. He was also a Gamorrean guard. So this is Paul and Hugh at Surrey Star Wars Weekend in November of 2025, talking about all of that good stuff and more here on Making Tracks.
So I'm with Hugh Spight. We're here in Surrey at what has been a really, really exciting weekend. How have you found the event, Hugh?
It's been actually very good. Yeah. Very well attended and met some lovely people. Yeah. Lovely chats, and it's been a thoroughly enjoyable day.
Yeah. Now we met a number of years ago at one of the first events that you were at, which was in Stoke, at Stoke-on-Trent, and you were telling me at the time that for many years, because they misspelt your name in the credits, people hadn't been able to track you down to be able to go into conventions like this. And so you were quite late coming to conventions, weren't you?
quite right. I mean, when the credits went up, because the Americans couldn't handle GHT, Hugh Spight became Hugh Spirit.
Yes.
And then shortly after, about 4 years after that, I left to do a job in Hamburg in Germany and stayed 15 years.
Yeah.
So I came back, and I'm in total obscurity.
Yeah.
And I'd been back in this country about 6 years, and I received a letter from someone who said, do you know people all over the world are looking for you? And I'm going, what are you talking about? He said, he said, he's involved with Star Wars conventions. Could he meet me? So I said, okay, fine. So I did. And and he introduced me to the whole thing.
Yeah.
What was going on. And then after that, I slowly got involved.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful because because I also was the Black Dalek in Doctor Who.
Yes.
And then I worked, on Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
And then suddenly all these things came together.
Yeah.
And it's been a great experience.
So you've got a number of conventions you can go along to, then,
yep,
haven't you? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely thrilled. And I say to people, I said, believe it or not, I used to be a ballet dancer, and I said, but a dancer's life is very short.
Yes.
And I said, at the end of it, I said, there's no golden handshake, there's not even a pension. No. I say, but this, and sometimes I'm in front of a lot of people, I said, this is payback time.
It's a lovely little extra career, isn't it?
Thank you very much.
It's giving you a fantastic sort of like...
It's giving me a pension.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no pension with what I've done.
Absolutely. So, it's essential for the likes of yourself to go out.
Oh, and it's wonderful. And meet people and travel. I go all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just come back from America. Yeah. I go there quite often. Japan, Mexico.
Yeah.
I go all over.
You love it. You clearly love it.
I love it. I really do. I love meeting people.
Yeah. So in Return of the Jedi, you were a Gamorrean guard, and then you were also Pruneface.
Yes.
What was?
Well, that was peculiar as well, because when I met this agent who Julian Owen, who decided to take me on, he said, "Did you do anything else in Star Wars?" And I said, well, there was one scene that I was involved with. I said, but I can't remember what I was. It was, Hugh, put this costume on and go over there.
Yeah.
And I said, I cannot. I don't know whether I was a calamari. I don't know what I was.
At the time, it's just a job, isn't it?
Yeah, it was exactly that. A JOB.
Yeah.
And so he looked into it, and he said, I found out who you are. You're one of the prune faces. And he said, because I described the scene, I said it was in like a discussion room or something, and he said, no, it was the briefing room. And he said, and I found out who you are. Because he knew the other two prune faces.
So he knew exactly which one you were.
So I was able to claim prune face.
That's brilliant. So you look at that picture now and you go, I don't remember doing it, but it's great.
What was I, a calamari? What was I can't remember.
And of course now you've got action figures of Gamorrean guards and prune face. When people come along and ask you to, I'm sure they do, can you sign my action figure? You look at it and you think, I'm a toy. How weird is that? So it must be really nice.
Oh, I mean, it's flattering away too, because you're going to immortality practically,
Yeah.
So in a way, and it's lovely, to meet the younger generation that's still coming into it.
Yes.
And appreciating it.
Yeah, that is the beauty of Star Wars, is that there's kids come in at certain points in time.
Despite the CGI, they're still they see something. Because I say to people, your brain's been developed over millions of years to recognise things subliminally. It's a big word. And I said it's uncomfortable, with CGI because it's something that's never quite right.
Yeah.
And I said it can be a bit exhausting watching a lot of it. So I think there might be a swing back, into three-dimensional.
Yeah.
And people saying, they find it more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. My brain is happy with this, rather than being bombarded with 5 images a second, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Just one last thing then. Dark Crystal. What were you in the Dark Crystal?
Well, I played 4 different roles.
Yeah.
I went in actually as a first assistant on body puppetry to Jean-Pierre Amiel, who was a French mime artist who they'd brought in. And I played 4 different characters.
Yeah.
I played one of the mystics, and I developed the land strider.
Yeah.
You know, the stilt.
The ones with the stilts,
But I had to learn to walk on stilts because they said they want this tall creature. So I had to learn
I
to
suppose
walk.
your ballet background.
My ballet, everything kicked in.
Yeah.
And in fact, I rehearsed with a safety harness and a wire, and Bob Harmon, who did all the Superman flying work, was my wire man.
Yeah.
And I found if he took 60% of my body weight, I could gallop.
Wow.
And it is physically impossible. Impossible.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how strong you are, you cannot do it.
Yeah.
And so it's the first time in history somebody has galloped on 4 legs. You know, and
how did that feel?
That's so nice to have a first, isn't it?
How did that feel?
Well, very exciting at the time, but again, it was just like, how can we make this work? This is what he wanted, and in the film bit, they get right. So we could do this, and that's so, and there's so many talented and gifted people in this country. Yeah. The Americans come over and they're amazed on this little island what we actually come up with. Talent. But, we have this thing about, he's got a little workshop in his garden and he makes these things. And, and then the industry goes, wow, we want that. We want to have that. So, and I think that's, part of the British character, to be slightly eccentric and do your own thing rather than, stop wasting your time, stop doing, get a serious job.
It should be encouraged.
But we're those, that's been part of our nature and our character, the British character, to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's been lovely catching up with you, and I hope to see you again soon.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Michael Cullen, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Jon Favreau turned up as the Most Wanted Global campaign launched, came on stage to talk about the importance of toys to Star Wars and to The Mandalorian, but he also, interestingly, gave a hint towards his Star Wars future. And then he finishes his quotes with saying, I've been working on Star Wars now for 7 years, and to be able to step up to doing it as a film feels like a culmination of what I'm working on. Culmination. Mark, that to me reads like he's saying, this is the last thing I'm going to be doing. Adios, exactly. So how does that read to you?
Yeah, it kind of does. A similar kind of thing, like at least for culmination for now, as in like everything that he's worked on previously has led to this, which it kind of has when you think about it. Doesn't necessarily say that he's done. After this, he's going to walk away. Maybe he just needs a break. Maybe he's got other projects he wants to do that he hasn't been able to do because he's been so invested in Star Wars. What I'm kind of calling the modern age of Star Wars, so really the post-Disney acquisition. If it probably wasn't for Jon Favreau, I don't think The Mandalorian would be anywhere near as successful as it was. Well, I mean, we wouldn't have had it at all. We wouldn't necessarily have Dave Filoni as taking one of the top jobs in the company. We have a lot to kind of be thankful for Jon's involvement. And hopefully, if it is a case that he steps away, it's not a permanent goodbye.
He hasn't said anything official. This is literally just taking his words as he says them. Culmination feels like end of an era. It could be the end of that Mandalorian era. It wouldn't be surprising if, as we move to Starfighter and start forging ahead in the timeline, that the focus shifts to that time period. Well, it's a slightly different question, but I'll ask you whilst it's on my mind. Do you think we'll see that Filoni film that was being spoke about for so long? Because now he's in charge. He's a busy guy anyway. Now you would imagine even more so. Would Favreau, like we thought Kevin Feige was going to produce a Star Wars film, but in the end, too much to do at Marvel. Now Filoni in charge, overview as he has, he can have his finger in every pie that he wants to do with Star Wars. If he wants to be involved in books and comics, he can do it because he has that oversight, that potential to do that. But going away for X amount of months to direct a film might not be on the cards for Filoni anymore. So to me, it reads like maybe that Filoni, the Avengers, the Magnificent Seven, whatever the sort of the reference point was, isn't going to happen, and that this Favreau film is what that might have been, and that the Mandalorian era, as it goes, is done. And that's not to say Mando as a character won't turn up in future storytelling, because, there's other stories to tell after that era. But Favreau, you said it, he instigated this. It reads when Kathleen Kennedy mentioned Sean Levy and said that Sean came along or they approached Sean 10 years ago, come up with ideas, and it had taken this long to get to that point in terms of Starfighter and everything that they're doing now. Favreau was of that era of being involved and brought in, and he came in at the right time, I guess, because Iger and everybody else wants to make Disney Plus happen. Star Wars is a priority without doubt, especially sort of 10 years ago when you've just had Force Awakens and you've got Last Jedi coming and money's blooming out of every pocket. And so putting the focus on Mandalorian made all the sense. He's not saying what Tony Gilroy said. I've done my bit and now I'm going to move on to other things that might come back, but I probably won't. This isn't that, is it?
No, exactly. I mean, he's got a few projects coming up, most significantly Jungle Book 2, that he's a producer on. But coming back to your Filoni point, I wonder if one reason why you ended up diverging and having both Dave Filoni and Lin Brennan in the top jobs, as they were, was to enable Dave Filoni to potentially still step away and direct his Mando film, because you didn't have that with Kathleen Kennedy because she just looked after everybody else, and then you had filmmakers. George did it, but then it meant that everything took 3 years plus to be in development. And one of the things that you never know, or at least I've never been told or heard, is that when George is making a film, what happens to Lucasfilm? Is everything else on hold until like the release of Revenge of the Sith? How much time was George able to then delegate to that stuff? And it's a different company. Yeah, and that's obviously part of it now. But George probably would have been able to almost hit pause on a kind of Lucasfilm thing because it's an independent company. But now, because it's part of Disney and these massive multinationals have all these other stuff, like even the boring stuff, even like the employee reviews and stuff, they all have to be done by deadlines. So somebody has to do that. George wasn't probably doing that, and Dave isn't. But then, like, Dave doesn't even need to worry about that. He can go and direct his film, and that can be Lin Brennan's headache if need be.
I think with George, he always said that all the books and comics and all the other stuff was like based on Star Wars. So that's one concern that he can park to one side.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that.
I know. And this is a canon era, so that's Filoni's area. That's George was running the business and in charge of creative, and now it's Filoni, as you just say, and Lin Brennan doing it together. So possibly, I mean, Feige's, to my knowledge, not directed, so that wasn't a path for him, whereas it feels like since, and you made a great point about how Favreau, I would imagine when it all shakes down and they do an art of Mando and all the details come out, one of the reasons they thought, let's bring Favreau in is because he can bring Filoni onto the live action stage off animation, like Filoni was sort of shadowing Rian Johnson on Last Jedi, watching stuff. He was there for Rogue One. So he was sort of there on set seeing these things happen to learn that. I just wonder, off the back of your question, whether Lucasfilm as an entity or Disney or even Filoni himself, who's younger than me, I think he's like 51, 52. So is the Lucasfilm presidency his forever job? Is this something he's thinking, I'll do this for 10 years and then go back to directing or do something else? Yeah. I just wonder what the mindset is. I mean, it's terrible to ask because he's literally just got his arse in the seat, you know, but I just wonder because so much was invested in Filoni to do directing, and he's directed on live action television, obviously on Disney Plus as well. Now he steps into that big seat. I make the assumption, and this is my assumption, that he's going to be too busy to direct a film. That, as you just said, might not be the case. The process might be set up so that exactly what you just said, Lin Brennan can take care of the business side of it. Filoni will have his story group. Yeah. I imagine, I don't know, does the story group become more important now that he's in charge of everything, or less important? I haven't quite figured that one out yet. Like you say, maybe this does give him the scope to do more creatively.
Yeah. Actually, after Ahsoka season 2, he's actually, do you know what? Yeah, I don't need to direct. Maybe having just done like 2 seasons of Ahsoka and stuff, that might have been enough for him. That might have satisfied him at least.
Yeah, scratch the itch. Yeah.
Scratch the itch, yeah. You know, who's also to say that he hasn't directed stuff on Mando and Grogu? He could have been doing like second unit stuff, you know. But then I suppose he is probably going to be more concerned, and he will need to be big story guy. What does the storytelling for the next 5-10 years of Star Wars look like? What's the breakdown? What's going to be films? What's potentially going to be animations? You know.
So in respect to Favreau, then, given that he came in with mega pedigree, going right back to Swingers and Elf and Zathura and all the other stuff, and being the UFC champion Friends and all the other things that he did before he and of course don't forget he was a voice in the Clone Wars. So he's been around. He says 7 years, but he's been around Star Wars a lot longer than 7 years.
Exactly.
So there's that connection there. Is it the apprentice becomes the master kind of thing? Because with Filoni at the top of the tree now, Favreau would have to answer to him. Is there an element of that, do you think?
It could be. That's one of those things that you don't know the chemistry, do you? However, you've got to remember that whilst Dave might have been the apprentice, there were also these other acolytes around. Like all those directors who were doing stuff on The Mandalorian. It was executive produced and written by Dave Filoni, and that was also what Kathleen Kennedy said. Like, we're trying to bring in new filmmakers to take on Star Wars into the future. So maybe this is part of our iteration, is that Dave gets moved up, there's all the story stuff. And then, you have other people. I'm talking about Bryce Dallas Howard and Deborah Chow and all these kind of people who could potentially direct Star Wars films.
Rick Famuyiwa.
Yeah, absolutely. Who I think some of the strongest episodes, like action episodes of Mandalorian, have been directed by him. So what I'm kind of saying is that Dave's role is going to change. He's completed his work, as it were, and he can kind of maybe go back and focus on other productions that he wants to do. And then he might come back, That's the thing. Unless you burn your bridges, you're never going to be turning your back on Star Wars. And I'm sure if the call comes, he'll answer it.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Forbes have posted their top 250 American innovators, a list that includes all sorts of memorable and well-known names, including at number 1, somebody who isn't even American, Elon Musk, but hey-ho. Number 2 was Jeff Bezos. Number 3 was Bill Gates. Number 4 is George Lucas. When you think you've got a list that includes Ed Catmull, who was the co-creator of Pixar, at number 43, Steven Spielberg at number 29, there's some big names on there, but George is number 4. And my question to you, Mark, is George, we think of him as the story innovator, the creative guy, the fella that came up with the Galaxy Far, Far Away and Indiana Jones and all the other stuff he's done. But you could argue quite confidently that his real influence on cinema is far beyond just the stories that he wrote, but the tech that he helped develop, came up with ideas, gave people the capacity to develop them and move things forward in the realms of cinema in a way that nobody else has ever really done or replicated to the degree that he did. So being number 4 in a list of American innovators makes all the sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I've seen like infographics which show branching out effect that, a successful Star Wars had on everything from obviously box office to merchandising to cinema production. How I do my job now and what software that I've been using. I edited on Avid for forever. That was Editoroid. That was developed by Lucasfilm. I don't think you can ever really appreciate how much he's done, because it's not even just for the production, is it? Like you said, it's like THX and the whole theatre alignment program to make sure that when you go to cinema, everybody's kind of having a level playing field, as it were, so that it doesn't matter if you go to an Odeon or a view, and that the cinemas are presenting the films as best as they possibly can to the audience who are paying the money, who are paying for these films to be made at the end of the day. I suppose you could also say 250 of probably the richest men in the world as well, and George probably isn't too far from the top of that. You can say, well, that kind of comes part and parcel with his success. So, yeah, fair play to him.
Fair play to him, indeed. And like you say, the work that he did in your industry professional, Mark Mulcaster, realm is evident and clear. You can trace the lineage of that, and you can do that across sound, across movie merchandising, obviously visual effects, and sound with Skywalker or Sprocket before that and Skywalker, and so many other things. The concept of building Skywalker Ranch, which you spoke about earlier, as a hub for filmmakers to come, as a retreat almost, and the way that has pushed sound and visual effects forward. And also just the building of Lucasfilm as an entity, again, that word, as a hub of all these cinematic things. About the only thing I can think that he tried to do, which has ended up happening in the end anyway, that he couldn't quite make happen at the time, was he was insistent on only screening certain Star Wars films in digital screens and digital cinemas. But at the time, the tech was too expensive and the cinema industry didn't want to invest all that money in digital projectors and so on and so forth. But we've got there eventually. So even that came to pass.
Well, exactly. And you probably remember as well. I mean, he said some comment, and I can't remember where it was. It must have been in an interview at some point, where he was saying that in the future, I'm talking about, he said this in the last 20 years, that basically we, the viewing audience, it would be an event to go to the cinema, and we would end up paying close to what you do for theatre tickets. Now, theatre tickets have kind of skyrocketed. But then if you look at it, if I go down to my Odeon Lux, which has a Dolby Vision, so it's a full digital screen with Dolby Atmos, which is the best premium sound system you can get, that's a £45 ticket. So yeah, you can actually go and see, London theatre productions for that price and get a semi-decent seat. So he's not wrong. You sometimes get it when you watch the beginning, like the episode 1 making of documentary, and he kind of makes these little throwaway comments, which are probably half a jest and stuff, but they all turn out to end up almost like coming to pass, really, don't they?
Very much so. I interviewed Rick McCullum about 20 years ago, and he quoted what you just said about George, how basically going to the cinema will be like going to the opera. Yeah. And IMAX is the format they really want to put the focus on, because it's premium cinematic experience. We all know it's not cheap. Right now, for a family of 4 to go to the cinema just to go to a basic cinema screen, you're looking at £100 with popcorn. Yeah. It's not something you do on a whim. It's an appointment event. So the innovations that Lucas helped bring forward, you look back 2007, the whole Grady Ranch thing, when he wanted to basically build a volume and the locals near Skywalker Ranch said no. Where did we end up 10 years later? We've got stagecraft, we've got volumes, and now productions, TV and big screen are using those things all the time. Maybe not for everything, but certainly for significant amounts of the film, because it just works so well. So even when he couldn't stick the landing, waggle the air quotes himself, he seeded the thought processes to making that thing a reality. Again, go back to Favreau, that was one of the things that he championed, because he'd done a similar thing on Jungle Book. This placement at number 4 may to some people seem a bit ridiculous, but actually when you look at the broader world of cinema, isn't ridiculous at all.
Hi, this is Dave Chapman, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So we're going to return back to Surrey Star Wars Weekend last year, November 2025, where I had the great chance to catch up again with Marti Matulis. We'd spoken on stage at London Film and Comic Con, and you will remember, if you listen to Making Tracks, that he couldn't talk about Skeleton Crew at that time because it hadn't been released. But as you'll hear in a moment, we spoke again at Surrey, and it had been released. So here's me and Marty talking about Vane, his character in The Mandalorian and in Skeleton Crew, here on Making Tracks.
So at Smugglers in Surrey, I'm here with Marty.
Hello.
Hello. So last time we spoke was at London Film and Comic Con on the stage.
Yes.
We had seen him in The Mandalorian, and we knew you were going to be in Skeleton Crew.
His face showed up in the teaser trailer they showed at Celebration.
That's right.
But the show itself had not come out, so I could only hint at it. I couldn't delve into it yet.
We can delve into it now.
Perfect.
You must have been, I'm assuming or presuming, you must have been thrilled with it, because as fans, it was a treat. We didn't know quite how much fun that show was going to be. And your character was, my first thought was to say pantomime villain. That's not the right phrase to use. But you were definitely the visible villain for us as fans. You were the hook to that sort of part of the galaxy. What was your vibe coming out of it? Did you enjoy being a part of it?
Oh, thrilled to be involved. Like, it was such a gift to be asked to come onto that show from The Mandalorian. And they stitched it together in a way where he did fly off and obviously landed in Skeleton Crew. But from the actor side of it, I only knew what I knew on the day, and I only shot my scenes with my other pirate people, and I didn't really know what the show was about beyond that. So when it finally came out, I was as thrilled as anyone to be a fan and watch the show and kind of have that nostalgic vibe wash over me as a child of the 70s and 80s and a guy who grew up on Spielberg films. So I thoroughly enjoyed it as a show, as a viewer as well.
And when you were filming it, the Goonies is always the touchstone people use for Skeleton Crew, but it is so evident that's what they were pitching at. Did you feel that when you were making it?
There was a sense of it. I mean, I knew that was kind of the vibe that they were going to infuse into it, and I knew their sensibilities from the Spider-Man movies, and I think that had more of the John Hughes vibe that was put into those. So I knew they were deft writers and creators, and that the show was in good hands at that point. But on the set, I think other than interacting with the 4 kids, it wasn't quite apparent what it was going to look like at the end of the day, which exceeded expectation for sure.
Now we've seen more of Vane. What do you make of him? Obviously, every time you perform him, your perception of him must be layered up and changed and tweaked. So it seems like an opportunist, but what do you feel of him?
Well, now that I've had a chance to psychoanalyze him, I think he's a bit emotionally dysregulated, a bit reactive. He might have a caffeine problem, certainly has an alcohol problem, but he probably manages that because he does have to fly a lot.
That's true.
So he's got to balance the uppers with the downers.
Yeah.
If we could say such things. No, he's a fun character, and they allowed me to kind of have my way with him, other than guidance within the scene to maintain the tone of the scene.
Yeah.
They seemed to be accepting what I was giving them, which was a bit of chaos, a bit of deviousness. I think he's trying to climb the ladder. I don't think he has enough awareness to know when he should stop climbing the ladder. He doesn't have the makeup to be that responsible. I think toward the end of Skeleton Crew, it was intimated that he might have been rising in the ranks. He can only go so far, though. He's only in it for himself, as any good pirate should be.
He's not a commander character.
No. Not a people person. Not much in the way of a leader. No leadership qualities.
Yeah.
But if it involves a pile of gold and reasonably easy competition to overcome, he's a good guy for that.
He's a classic pirate in that sense.
Yeah. Quintessential qualities of all things pirate.
When you started, when they first test out the makeup, they first put the makeup on, you're sitting within that as somebody who's experienced with that as well. And then to your final scene as Vane so far in Skeleton Crew, where they put on the makeup for the last time. What's the advances? Is it a quicker process? Is it a smoother process? How does that work?
Yeah, there are always a few things to work out in that process. And initially, when we put him together, I think time-wise, we were maybe 2.25, maybe 2.5 hours to the last time, which was, I think we were down to maybe 1 hour and 40 minutes, which for a prosthetic makeup is a pretty short time. A few things were refined. We developed a way for him to breathe through his non-existent nose, which helped me greatly from the inside, as I do have a nose.
Yes.
And I like breathing through it when I'm able to. So that was an advance that we kind of put together on the fly, which worked well. And then, I think the knowing that it was the final time doing the makeups, there's a little bit of sadness. The process itself is a little bit grueling. It takes its time. You're sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's a bit sweaty during the day when you're in the makeup because you can't get out of the makeup. Getting out of it is a bit of a mess with the makeup removers.
Yeah.
But there is that notion that now I don't get to wear this guy anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be in someone else's closet and I have to walk away from him. So it's a little bit of sadness at the end of the day and at the end of the episode when you're wrapped and sent on your way.
But you never know. I suppose you never knew you were coming back for Skeleton Crew initially, so...
It was a surprise and a bit of a gift. I think initially I was there for a day, which extended into 2 for Mandalorian. Found out he wasn't going to die. I ended up coming back for the flight scenes for the dogfight in episode 1 and 5 of season 3. Another treat that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And then a bit of a pause to see what they were going to do with him. And then it was announced that he would get to come and continue his pirate ways in Skeleton Crew.
So what else have you been up to beyond Vane?
Not a lot. The industry's doing strange things. I think we're still figuring out what AI is going to do or not to do, and different productions have gone different places. I think the latest round of shows for Lucasfilm have been in here in the UK at Pinewood. So back in the States, not a lot. I'm kind of pins and needles to see if Vane will get to show up again. But I have a quite large, extensive group of makeup artist friends who give a call now and then. Yeah. So done a few things with Joel Harlow, who was the makeup department head on Evil, which I was involved with for 3.5 seasons. And so I maintain contact with all of them and keep my ears open for any upcoming things.
And events like this, I mean, that must be fun, just getting to chat to folks about your adventures.
That is the way this lives on. It was a delightful thing to hear Jon Favreau remind me that I will be signing things until the day I die, which I didn't believe him, but then I started putting it together. I thought, if Jabba the Hutt's left arm gets to come to conventions and talk about Star Wars with other fans, I think a nubbly faced pirate will get to do the same. So
well, his tail's over there somewhere. So.
That's what I heard. A part here and a part there.
That's it.
Yeah, it's one of the best things. I mean, I am at the end of the day a fan more than anything else. Getting to be involved at the level that I have is something I never expected, and I'm always appreciative of. So I like to come here and talk to folks like you and fans who come in and kids who come in and put it together that, oh, wait a minute, this guy was in this character. I'm not sure how that works, but that's exciting, to people my age who were 6 and 7 years old when the original show was in theaters.
Yeah, but there's not that many on the face of it returning characters in the vein of Vane, to use a terrible pun. So it's a nice little group to be in. So
indeed,
glad you did come back.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marty.
All right.
This is Steve Bloom, voice of Zeb Aurelius, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks. Caravast. May the force be with you.
It's New York Toy Fair. Toys are being announced left, right and centre, and loads and loads and loads of stuff was posted on StarWars.com and plenty of other places. Galleries galore on Fantha Tracks right now. Go and check them out. But Mark, of all the things that you've seen so far from Toy Fair, what's caught your eye? I've seen plenty of things I think are pretty cool.
Grogu Furby.
I knew you'd say that. Damn you.
Dare to be cute, my friend. Dare to be cute.
Oh, yes, as always.
Either that or the most exciting thing, I think, is the Mandalorian cookbook was announced as well.
Yes, well, don't diss
had a
it.
cookbook in a while. Yeah,
those cookbooks are awesome. I love the cookbooks.
There's a lot of lots of cutesy-wootsy stuff, and I think really some of the stuff that caught my eye, well, just basically a little bit of everything, because some of the Black Series figures looked amazing, vintage collection stuff as well, but then we've got new Funkos. There's a lot of I'm just going to call it Baby Yoda stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I think we were all expecting, and the Lego sets look cool. So they're pretty savvy. They've basically got merch for just about everyone, and everyone's kind of pocket as well.
Whatever your level of Star Wars involvement is, there's something for you. You just mentioned the Lego stuff, so there's some great stuff coming there. There's a Razor Crest, there's the Anzellan ship as well. Jazzwares have announced their new Razor Crest with the new sort of yellow flash paint design on it, which looks really nice. I will definitely be hopping onto that because I love my Jazzwares stuff. And you mentioned Funko, so there's a number of Funkos there, including Zeb. There's the Action Buddy Grogu from Hasbro, which looks like fun. There's a very, very cool AT-AT Walker from Jada Toys and the AT-RT as well, which you see in the trailer. So there's quite a few AT-RTs. I think there's a vintage collection one out there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. This must be a fairly big action set piece. They've listed some of this stuff, and whether or not this is what they're calling it, or, just to save spoilers and that. Like, for example, it's fan drops.
Ice Planet Chase.
Exactly. So, okay, is that going to be Hoth? Or is that going to be another planet?
It feels like it's going to be Hoth purely from the fact that the Super Bowl trailer had Tauntauns. That's the tell for me. There's going to be more than one ice planet.
But that's the kind of cool thing that I would love to see. I would love to see a post-Return of the Jedi return to Echo Base, either by intentionally or by happenstance, as it were.
There's rumours of Naboo being in there, I've heard. So there might be a return to Naboo. I just hope that there's not too many callbacks to other stuff with Mandalorian and Grogu, because Mando as a character is enough of a callback that he's the best bits of Boba Fett, and Baby Yoda is a riff on Yoda. So that pairing as a starter are kind of a callback to familiar Star Wars things. Certainly the silhouettes are, but in terms of where we go in Mando and Grogu, if we go to Hoth, great. If there's a point for going to Hoth, because it's way out in the middle of nowhere.
Could be Ilum.
Yeah, it could be Ilum. That's true. It could be Ilum. It's still around at this point. It's not been turned into Starkiller Base quite yet, although that probably was underway. We'll find out, won't we?
When you think about it, the whole thing was that Mandalorian was retroactively trying to join and connect the original trilogy to a sequel trilogy.
We had the Shadow Council scene, didn't we? Which felt very much like that.
Exactly. So, if he's there and, some construction just started or something. But yeah, there's lots of merch. There's no real massive surprises. It is heavily focused around our heroes for the time being. That isn't to necessarily say that obviously there's going to be another wave of stuff released either closer to the film or after the film that may have a greater depth of, say, characters. I'm thinking of Black Series and vintage. But this is the way to Mandalorian and Grogu, so let's get our wallets out and start buying some merch. Okay, so that is all we have time for today. So thank you very much for listening to us chatter and babble about Star Wars. We like to do it more often than you realise. In fact, there's not enough shows for us to do it on, so we have to jump onto other people's. However, we have no listeners' question this week. So if you've looked over all the Mandalorian and Grogu merch and you think that actually there's something there that is really stand out, or maybe gives us a really obvious clue as to what we're going to see in the film and we have missed it, why didn't you drop us a line? And Mr. Newbold can tell you how you can get in touch.
Yes, I can. That's a great idea, Mark. Send us your queries, thoughts and ideas on what merch they've released and what they haven't. Let us know, and here's how you can do it.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
And amazingly, Mark, not that I say this every episode, but that's me done for this one.
That is me done for this week's episode as well. So, matey, thank you very much for chatting with me again today, as always. Everybody else, you stay safe, take care, and may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Collecting Tracks.